7:38. Sorry for being tardy this evening. This is a special school committee meeting for August 12th, 2013, my sister's birthday. Happy birthday to Ashley. We haven't dealt with minutes, or we skipped dealing with them the last meeting, so we have minutes of July 22nd and July 29th. We'll take July 22nd first. Both of these have been circulated by Dennis. I think some comments were provided, at least to the most recent version, the most recent minutes of the 29th. So for the 22nd, could I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
I'd so move.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion, question, or comment on those minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes of July 29th, 2013. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to have the minutes of July 29th approved.
Second. Any discussion, comment, question? Thank you, Dennis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Call up on minutes. So tonight we have kind of a general agenda. This is a very fluid project, as some of you in the room know better than others. So things have been coming up, and somehow in June, I didn't think we were going to be able to get through the summer with just one meeting a month, and I was right. So sorry about that, Dot. Should have anticipated better, perhaps, but I had a feeling we were going to need to meet. So a number of things that we're going to discuss tonight. I did put together kind of a little order in my own mind. John, could we look at the budget update first?
Oh, sure.
Just to catch you up on where we are with budget, with some new monies that have come in, some additional collected funds as well. I do have a check here from our donor for the scoreboard of the multipurpose field.
Awesome.
$35,000. Picked that up this morning. And John, I think, has reflected that here.
Yes, I have.
As collected.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Are you sure? We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the budget, so a couple things I want to get through, and then, okay. We have some folks with us who are working on this project with us. Great. We'll get to that shortly. Thank you. We have a number of folks with us who are working on the project, and we're going to address some things with them. But first on the budget, so as you can see, we've made some great headway on collected funds. So we're showing an amount outstanding of $37,041, which is terrific. So we've either collected cash, checks, or other negotiable instruments representing the rest of the money. And I guess in the box, the total project gap and outstanding, the 123. So that's the amount, including the increased concession bid plus the additional money for Gale for construction for the concession. Throw that in there or no?
Yes, I did that, but I just took that off the contingency. So the project still is the same amount. So basically, I included the Gale concession construction services component on the design engineer for that component, and then I reduced the concession to $203,755. So. And you're correct, the project gap and outstanding, so that's the outstanding amounts to be collected of $37,000, plus the project gap that we have after all, the change orders that reflected the decrease because of the loam and the removal of the columns, offset by a few of the smaller items that we've added. That project gap is $86,000. So there's a gap right now about $123,000, $186. The collected funds we have of $780,000 actually include this amount that I knew was coming today. My understanding is that later on this week, I should be getting another check as well from the HSP, not sure of its size.
Wait, just a question. So the 86 is where we're short, so you're adding the 37 to that to get,
Well, that, yeah,
Like
that's,
a cash flow situation.
The-
really,
right.
so.
Yeah.
But the 37 isn't,
no, right, the 37 is, I mean, that's the project gap and outstanding amounts to be collected. That's right. That's,
so, but there, I don't think you can look at them as two separate numbers, because isn't one of them, like, I mean, 37 represents an uncollected amount of money that's already accounted for in donations,
correct.
whereas the other number is where we're short of overall money. So I don't know that you should be combining them, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to show the cash flow impact of it,
Okay.
really, you know.
All right, I get it.
And also, we can't
Project
forget
gap
that,
is
Yeah.
86.
you
So,
know,
so
they're not
really,
secured, so I mean, it's
No, I
one of those
understand.
things where we expect fully to collect the money, but
right, but still, it's money that's been donated yet uncollected, and we're accounting for it in the donations.
We are,
So
yes.
in terms of where we're short, in terms of not only collected money, but donations as well, we're short the 86,000.
That's correct.
145. That's
Yeah.
really the number we're short. Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
and the budget is still carrying a contingency in excess of 200,000.
Right. Right. And, you know, I think we can, August is the big month for construction. There's a lot happening this month. And certainly once the bleacher construction begins, and they've already been working on the footings, and once they get to the actual installation of the field, as well as the concession getting into the ground, I think we'll be able to look at the contingency. You know, that maybe by, you know, early September that we can do that. So this is great news.
So, and then you see the revolving balances, which is sufficient funds to carry the, you know, the time lag between the committed funds that we'll be receiving and making payments on the contract. So there's adequate funds available.
And just to, you know, I know we've talked about revolving accounts, right? But maybe not a lot of folks understand that when we talk about a field revolving account, that reflects money that we take in from user fees, from renting out the fields, from gate receipts, from people paying for tickets.
That's correct.
Things of that nature. It's not
That's
money
right.
that's given to us by any budget or town meeting, so we can differentiate. You know, we're not using any school budget money, we're not using any other money afforded to us or granted to us by town meeting. We're using money that's derived directly from
rental
using these
receipts.
fields.
Yes, use of fields,
Right.
use of facilities.
I think that's an important
Yes.
distinction that maybe not a lot of folks are aware of.
Mhm.
So, okay. Great. Any questions on the budget? I think we're making some great progress.
Yeah.
It's really great. Okay. So John mentioned the change order. So Andy and Ed and I think perhaps we're all aware of these, but Andy and Ed and I certainly have spent some time looking at these change order items. And typically, what you do is, there were a number of things that we had to look at, and a lot of them ended up being credits that we looked at, and then they got combined into one change order that was submitted, and now we're seeking approval for it. So change order 1 for this project in front of you deals with 7 items, all of which we've talked about before. Some additional tree removal along the fence line that we installed, fence removal, and actually that's just the $800 is for the demolition of that,
That's correct.
the fence, the
Yep.
snake fence going from the concession to the western property line. The elimination of the stone columns, the masonry columns. The elimination of screening of additional topsoil that's just being stockpiled at DPW for future use. And then so those are all, well, a couple of them are credits and they're big ones. And then in replacing the masonry columns, we're poles that we discussed before. The electrical equipment upgrade in the concession building to make it an all-weather cabinet based on the timing, and then the removal of that kind of sidewalk to nowhere that I call it, an additional loam and seed in that area by the bleachers. So ended up 7 items resulting in a $75,460 credit to the budget, and those are reflected in the numbers that John has.
So making the electrical watertight
Yeah.
until the concession building's done is only an additional $7,000.
That's right.
Great.
And it can, it stays in that cabinet.
Sure.
It just ends up being, something that.
If we ever have a roof problem,
That's
there
right.
won't be a problem for the
That's right. So the way we do this in building committee for the middle school is we vote to approve the change order, and then as chairman, I sign. So I would take a motion to approve change order number 1 as set forth in front of you.
So moved.
The second? Any questions, discussion, comments? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Great, so I'll take care of that. Construction update. I just wanted to give a brief update. Let's see if I have here. And our project manager, Tom Perry, is here, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong about any of this. And actually, since last Wednesday, we're further along. I think the one thing that's probably the furthest along in the project is the far parking lot. That's nearly complete, and I think they'll be paving later this week, and then finishing up next week, weather permitting. So that's right on schedule, which is great, ready for the 26th, which is 2 weeks from today. So we're in great shape with that. The drainage work is ongoing and significant. As you know, the 30-inch pipe under Union Street was done, and the culvert work was done. The drainage work under the fields is continuing, and we're getting ready to start filling that and building up. I think doing perimeter drain, you're doing drainage in the baseball area, where the multipurpose field area is. Been working on the bleacher footings. I think he poured light foundations in the parking lot or leading to on the pathway. I'm not exactly sure. But so a lot of that is ongoing. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I wanted to copy this and give it out, but I didn't. Do you have a copy of the 2-week look ahead that we got this morning? You know what I do?
Sure.
Here. Can we just make copies for? Just so we can- I meant to give that to you before. I'm sorry. So every week there's a construction meeting, and we get a 2-week look ahead to see, what it is that they're working on now, how long a duration does that expect to continue, when will it be completed. So this week, we're looking at starting installation of the granite curbing along Union Street. What, 600 feet, lineal feet? Something in that ridiculous nature. Big number. The water line tap that'll service the concession building, I think, is being installed this week. Drainage work continues in the turf field area. Turf curb is going to start, and the bleacher footings are continuing. So there's a lot going on, which is great. We are getting regular visits from the building commissioner and the conservation agent. We're tidying up where necessary, making sure erosion controls are in place, making sure that the pipes aren't bringing silt off site, making sure the catch basins are clean. We're doing that regularly because that's really important. Let's see. I think that's it on the schedule, unless anyone has any questions. Is there anything else, Tom, that you can provide on where we are in terms of what's going on that I've missed in general terms?
Underground electric started today.
Yeah, a lot of utility work is beginning, and we're going to talk about some of that in a little bit, because I think there's some opportunities for us to do some things with some of the utilities while the trenches are open, and that kind of dovetails with the discussion that the cable TV folks have been having recently. Okay. Any questions on any of what's going on? Trying to keep you all up to date as much as possible. There's a lot going on, as you know. Okay, so the main reason why we're coming here tonight is to discuss the artificial surface that we're going to install at the multipurpose field. You know, I think throughout the design and permitting process, we referred to it as field turf. That's an actual brand, kind of like Reynolds Wrap is to tinfoil. There are many, am I right? Okay, there are many brands like that. I think for the most part, they are, most of this material is manufactured in Calhoun, Georgia. I think there are one or more factories that manufacture the bulk of this material that's used across the country. And about a week ago, Rob Delmonico of RAD approached me about an opportunity whereby he might be able to provide a savings if we used a different turf material that he would arrange for installation of, rather than using field turf or the similar that was specified. Rob is here to talk to us about it, and I'll welcome him up here, essentially to tell us about, you know, this move that his company is making, a project that has begun in Cumberland, Rhode Island. And Bill Seymour from Gale is here to speak to you know, his familiarity with RAD's involvement in this and the quality of the material. You also have some materials that were sent to you by Art Eddy, who's a landscape designer for Birchwood Design. You'll recall that Birchwood Design is a landscape design company that is doing the middle school project for us. Art Eddy is also the gentleman that a number of us met at Marshfield when we looked at that turf before we chose a contractor. So he has done some due diligence of his own looking into this. He's working with RAD and PAR Corporation on the Cumberland, Rhode Island project. So we have folks here who can speak to this, and Rob, I'd invite you up to talk to us about what you're proposing. I like touchy-feely. Don't get the infill all over you.
Exactly.
Bring it in the house.
To wash.
I have that stuff in my house for the next 20 years.
Thanks.
So yes, I'm Rob Delmonico with RID Sports. We are doing a project down in Cumberland, Rhode Island. We're putting in a track and a field, and we're installing our competition turf. We're submitting this as an or equal to the product that's specified. My company is going to be installing it in a 8-year warranty, which is what's in the specifications, and we're offering a savings if you so choose it. John Chaffin, who works with us, is our turf expert, and he can really talk to you about the details of the turf much more eloquently than I can. So I'm going to turn that over to John.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I'm John Chaffin, now with RAD Sports. I came from a competitor, moved over with RAD a little while back. Just in a synopsis here, RAD Sports getting involved in the synthetic turf business was a natural progression. The market is exploding. We've got a lot of new fields going in and then a lot of replacement fields going in. And Rob has done probably 100 of these projects throughout New England, Mid-Atlantic states. And he's expressed to me in the past, we've worked together quite a bit, problems with schedule, inferior products, subcontractors not showing up on time. And so he had a sense of urgency to get into this, so he controlled every aspect of it. And around June, some very key people became available to help Rob get into this market. I would say I'm one of them. And once the plan was put in place, Rob and I and Derek, his brother, went down to Georgia, and we took a look at the factories down there, and it was a real eye-opener for me. They've really modernized. They're big. They've got extrusion facilities, which mean they manufacture their own yarn. They run it through a coating process. They put the backing on. It's really remarkable down there how explosive this synthetic turf business is. So what we were looking for is a one-stop shopping place, a manufacturer that can put together all the necessary components under one roof. How many tufting lines do they have? How many rolls of turf can they make at the same time? Do they have a final secondary coating in-house? The manufacturer's history. Now, how long have they been around under the same name? Do they have a proven track record of good performance? And the key component, and actually the only component in this turf that wears, is the yarn. It's the grass itself. Everything else is really kind of inert. The rubber's going to last about 100 years, the sand for 1,000,000 years. The backing isn't exposed to the sun, so the backing's going to last. So we chose a company and a product manufactured by Turf Store in Calhoun, Georgia. They've been around for a long time, highly mechanized. They've got their own extrusion line. They make their own yarn, different types of yarn. And we have named that product Competition Turf. We've got different codes for it. Right here we have Competition RS, which is Rad Sports, MN, which is monofilament, 40 ounce. That's the weight of the yarn per square yard. It's got great durability. It's gone through cycles on what we call a Lisport machine that runs back and forth to see just how long it'll go before things break down. And to give you an idea, when I got in this business 12 years ago, the fibers were going 6,000 to 8,000 cycles before they'd start to break down. Now that fiber is up to 80,000 cycles. So the fibers are much better. They're more UV resistant. So we feel like it's going to really last a long time and perform well for you. This product, that exact fiber, is in place at Brown University and at other places around the United States. And this company has manufactured yarns and turf for schools in the area, like MIT, Harvard, Boston College. So it's a very, very well thought out product. Bill Seymour did the design at Brown University, so he's well aware of it. So we look at this as an opportunity for Rob to give back to the community, to RAD Sports to give back to this community, give you good savings on the field. We're going to do a super job for you. We're local right here, and we appreciate you taking the time talking to us.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, could you, just one question with respect to, the type of material, the quality, all those things, as compared to a field turf or, one of those other, for instance, we had applied for a grant from USA Football. They're in bed somehow with field turf, so we had to use field turf in order to get that. We unfortunately didn't get the grant. But I'm just curious because I've heard of field turf elsewhere that seems to be kind of a, I don't know if it's just a name or, right.
Do you know where I came from? Field turf. Yeah, so I'm well aware of the product.
Yeah.
There are subtle differences. Field turf has certain patents. They build things a certain way. Some of them are very attractive. Some of them maybe not so. But field turf is a good product. This fiber that we looked at down there, I've never seen anything quite as durable as that. Again, I came from the field turf family, so I'm aware of what they have there. The infill mixture is basically the same products. The type of installation, the seams are sewn. Everything else is done pretty much the same way. So there isn't really a whole lot of difference there between the products.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, you good after. Has anyone used it? You said you're bringing it into some place in Rhode Island, but has anyone used this turf here locally?
No, that'll be first. That'll be number one. Yeah. But having said that, I mean, it's locally no, but Rob, how many installations in the Ohio area?
12.
Yeah, and also around the country. So essentially, the exact same thing has been put in various places around the country. The company in Cincinnati just won a 15 field deal in Indianapolis, so it's very, very well respected.
So in that regard, it sounds to me what we're kind of talking about is a private label, if you will.
Correct.
There's a manufacturing company that makes turf for a number of different people under various brands, and for want of a better term, we'll call this competition turf your private label or controlled label, however you're going to look at it. So from that point of view, to Andy's question, this same product, you mentioned something about it, Brown or other places, so is the same product perhaps under a different brand or a different proprietary label used in other places?
Is that pretty fair to say, yeah?
Correct.
Okay.
How long has this company been in business for, down in Georgia?
The turf store?
Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah.
Did you put, did competition turf go into Brown University?
I'm sorry, say that.
Did competition turf
No.
go into Brown?
Yeah.
What went into Brown?
The product that went into Brown was made by
Bill.
the turf store.
Bill,
It used.
I'm sorry, can you come, just because the cameras won't get you in, I think it's important to capture all this.
Good evening. For those on TV, I'm Bill Seymour. I'm the Director of Civil Engineering for Gale Associates. We were the designer of several fields at Brown, and the one in question, and I've looked at the technical specifications that Rob has provided us recently, versus a top-tier, top-shelf product that we've installed a number of places, one of which is Brown. That particular product, and I can't speak to the degree to which they are exactly the same product, but they are very generally the same. The fiber is the same, the manufacturing plant is the same, and all of the specifications that I've been able to look at appear to be the same, is polytan. And polytan, is my understanding, has a controlling interest in the turf store, which is the manufacturer of the product that's being recommended to you tonight by RAD.
What product is going into Cumberland? Is it competition turf?
Yes.
And that's in place? Or
No,
about?
it's in progress right now.
In progress. Now, is that the first one?
Yes.
So they were in, it sounds like a similar situation, and we are, there was a project that you had won the project, you were going forward and then had an opportunity to offer this to them?
That is correct.
Okay.
So I have a question. What are we talking about for savings? And just to verify, the warranty on the product remains the same, correct? The
Yes,
warranty,
$40,000 savings, and the warranty is an 8-year warranty.
$40,000 savings, okay?
And Bill, you're okay with this product, based on your?
I've got some things to say when it's my turn. I can do it now if you want.
Sure. And just to be clear, we're talking about a warranty that we would have gotten from Field Turf or some other company, and that warranty would be issued by a third party and insurer,
Correct.
essentially.
There are two warranties. One is the 8-year warranty, and there is a manufacturer's warranty, but you also have warranty language in your specification, which is a contract document, which, in my opinion, supersedes the manufacturer's warranty and gives you really belt and suspenders. The third-party warranty also is specified in your contract with RAD, and it's pretty definitive, and it does stipulate that it be issued by an A-rated insurer and that it be issued in your name at the time of the procurement, not after the fact, and so on and so forth. I've not seen that warranty from RAD. I know what your specification says. I know what they're contractually bound to provide you, but that's one of the do-outs, I think, is that we need to see that, like any other turf submittal. A couple other comments real quick. This is the specification from the contract documents. We did call out Field Turf. You're welcome. We did call out Field Turf Revolution. We took the specifications for that and put them beside the RAD specifications. We also took a look at the comments by Birchwood Design. We generally concur with them. If this were submitted to us purely on the merits of the technical specifications, we would approve it in all likelihood as an equivalent to the product specified in the context of a Massachusetts public solicitation. There are some things that we want to see. We want to see the no lead certification. We want to see the no patent infringement, the indemnification against intellectual property. We wanted to see a sample up until today. We did get one today, and I really like it. And again, from my perspective, it looks very, very much like what we specified and supervised the installation of at Brown University last summer at this time, which I know to be made by the same plant and use the same Polytex fiber, which is a very top-flight fiber. So what this table really tells you is that from a technical perspective, although there's some questions with regard to the actual infill structure, we'll get through that during shop drawings and submittals if we get to that point with this product. They are essentially equivalent. The pros, unified
So Bill,
delivery.
just one
Yes, sir.
second. So on the infill, which is listed down here.
Yep.
Is that proprietary to Field Turf, or would that be available to use with this?
If you
product?
look, that's a great question. If you look at the infill line, Field Turf has a structured or layered infill system. It's sand in the bottom, mixture of sand and rubber on top. That is proprietary, is my understanding, Mr. Ex-Field Turf. That is a proprietary aspect of the Field Turf system, so they are allowed to do that, and the other 35 to 40 turf manufacturers out there are not allowed to do that. Does that answer your question? What I think is also interesting on that line below that is the actual structure, pounds of rubber, pounds of sand, total weight of infill. I've not seen a submittal with regard to that. But again, if that's something that the committee decides to go forward with, those are all going to be submitted to us in the due course of the submittal process. Does that answer that, Dennis?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think the pros, and I'm going to talk about my perspective on pros and cons. I think the pros are that you do have a unified delivery by an industry leader in terms of the contractor. I think that's why they got in the business. And I think there's some basis to that. I think the technical specifications appear to be technically equivalent. I think it is a proven fiber by a proven manufacturer. Those have a long history. They've been tested rigorously with all the ASTM standard testing that John alluded to. I think cost is a significant advantage. The cons. I've talked about the uncertain infill specifications. We can fill that gap. I'm not certain who your crew is. I know that I've heard a couple names tossed around, and John made reference of some folks that became available. If it's who I think it is, they're the best crew members in doing installations, but we still need to see that. We need to see crew certifications. Again, that's something that's gone through its submittals. I've not seen the third-party warranty. We've talked about that. I've not seen the certificate on lead. We've talked about that. I've not seen a certificate indemnifying Hingham and Gale against allegations of intellectual property infringement. Those are the pros and cons, with the exception of one. My biggest concern, and mostly I favor this, I think it's a good value for the town. My biggest concern is one of experience, because experience was stipulated specifically in the specifications. And by accepting this proposal, you are consciously setting aside several aspects of the contract, of the specifications related to experience. Can you get constructive credit for that experience derived from the fact that they've done a bazillion fields with other people's products? Can you derive constructive credit for those specifications with regard to this product being very, very comparable to a couple of other top-tier products manufactured by an industry leader, leading manufacturing company? Those are decisions that you guys kind of have to come to. But if you want me to review those specifications, I can. But they're pretty formidable. They were meant by Gale, when we authored those specifications, to make sure that you had an installation by a very seasoned team installing a very seasoned product. You kind of do if you accept this proposal, given its heritage, given its lineage, but to the letter of the specification, perhaps not. Those are my comments. Yes, sir.
So, first of all, I'll go back to one thing you said. Field Turf owns a portion of who?
No, I'm sorry. Field Turf self-produces. They have their own manufacturing facilities.
Okay.
The turf store in Calhoun is owned, to my understanding, 60% by a company called Polytan, which
Okay.
produces its own product,
Gotcha. All right.
which, as I previously alluded to, is the product that was installed at Brown and a bunch of other top-flight facilities.
And then the cons that you listed, with the exception of experience, are really just to be furnished by you. There's nothing, I mean, because if they give you the specs on infield, crew, third-party warranty, certificate of lead.
I think the third-party warranty, either it has lead or it doesn't, and either they'll indemnify you against intellectual property or they won't. You're right. I think the third-party warranty is an important one because, frankly, that is a specification that we use to keep a lot of third-world turf companies out of your project.
Right.
If you're an A-rated insurance carrier, you're not going to issue that type of policy to a knockoff product that doesn't own the Volkswagen that they're selling it out of. I'm not suggesting that's the case here. I mean, RAD's obviously a formidable company with real tangible assets.
Well, it's basically,
But-
it's not
but-
really, it's a con, it's more like, these are documents you need to review before you give a final blessing.
I think if they are able to produce a third-party warranty that meets the intent of the specification, that will tell us a lot about the insurance carrier's perception of them as a company and their viability. I think that's what is important.
Okay. And then on experience, so Field Turf Revolution is a subcontractor. If we went with Field Turf, those people would be put into Turf Down.
Yes.
So you basically
Some-
subcontract them out.
A subtle but significant difference.
But now if we use these other people, then this new team, which we think is experienced, would be putting it down.
Yes, I do want to make one quick clarification, though. The specification in the public solicitation, the guide specification, was Field Turf Revolution, which we think very highly of as a product. That's why we specified it. Whether or not RAD submitted that exact product as part of the submittal process or submitted an equivalent was never determined. We never received any turf submittals. The guide specification, the product that we specified, was Field Turf Revolution.
Right, just to remind everybody, as a public school, we can't, unless we indicate that there's a proprietary specification, and we did that, I think, on 4 or 5 instances only with respect to the middle school, and those tend to be things of a technological area where you're using something throughout the district, right? And you want to be consistent with the technology that you're using, so you can specify a particular model, brand, thing like that. Otherwise, you can't really have proprietary specifications in public projects. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you're saying something like, we want Allen Bradley controls or Honeywell, whatever, you could do
Right.
that if that made sense with the, but you couldn't say, we want so-and-so's cabling.
Right.
or
You'd have to be able to defend it with something that was a good argument. You know, like a security system. Well, this is the security system that we have in place in the whole district, so we're building this new school. We want to use the same security system because we want to be able to integrate it properly, and we just put in the new one everywhere else, so you could make that a proprietary specification, and that would pass muster.
So, yeah, so on this, which I appreciate the comparison you put together here. So there seem to be a few places which my untrained eye would suggest might be that the sports, what you've called sports turf, which you're now calling competition turf, right, is maybe superior to what we're looking here. For instance, where they talk about a 24-ounce secondary backing versus 16 to 18 ounce, is that better or is that not better?
That would tend to be better.
Okay. And when it says that Tufting gauge is half-inch versus three-quarter-inch centers, would that be more dense?
There's 2 schools of thought.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
the rows between the spacing of the fibers in the field turf application. First of all, the specification allows for half-inch to 3/4.
Okay.
Half-inch is a denser pile. If you look at the sample, you can't see the infill as apparently as you could in a comparable field turf sample because the rows are closer together. Some people think that grass-like appearance and the lack of visibility of the infill associated with the wider gap is detrimental. Other people would argue, the field turf folks would argue, and I'm not sure I disagree with them, that as an athlete, you're playing on the infill, not on the fiber. And particularly when it becomes wet, the ability of your athletic shoe to get through the fibers and into the infill is less restrictive in the field turf product. I think there's really pluses and minuses with both. I think that with a tighter stitch gauge, you're getting a denser looking carpet. I think it controls ball roll for things like soccer and lacrosse a little bit more evenly. On the other hand, I think when it gets wet, it could tend to be a little bit more slippery, and I think that your footing, and there are various tests that measure this, but that your footing would be a bit better on the field turf product. So what's important is face weight. Face weight is a function of the thickness of the fiber, the denier, the spacing of the rows, the stitch rate, the number of stitches per inch, and the length of the fiber. The face weight tells you how much fiber you're getting in a square foot of the carpet. And these products are essentially the same as it relates to that. I think that's more important than the gauge.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Bill, as we compare Field Turf Revolution to competition Red Sport, there's a number of items on the left side, and then there's some blanks. Is it that significant that the total weight product for Red is empty?
Yeah, I think it is significant, and it relates to the 3 rows that are blank down below. The total product weight includes the infill materials. And because I haven't seen a specification for the exact composition of the infill in terms of pounds of rubber, pounds of sand per square foot, then we can't calculate the total weight of the system.
And by the same token, with Field Turf, their perforations is deleted. What's the significance there?
Yep. Field Turf has I think it's still patented, John. The way the fibers are held in place is there's a polyurethane backing that's coated to the back of the carpet. It locks the fibers in place. Field Turf then scrapes that coating away between the rows, and it allows the carpet to drain between the rows of fibers. They would argue that 50% of their carpet is permeable as a result of that. It's a patented system. All the other 40-some-odd brands of turf punch holes in their backing. And in terms of the drainage performance of the two, they're essentially equivalent. They just get to that 16 inches per hour in a different fashion.
If these two products were the same price, we're hearing a competition tonight from Revolution and from competition, same price. Are you in a position to make a recommendation, or do you need some more information?
No, I think if they were the same price, being installed by the same folks, I think that I would probably favor the Field Turf Revolution product as the more tried and true product overall. I think it's got a very well-established track record, and I think I would recommend it. That doesn't mean, first of all, we're making another assumption that if you don't accept RAD's proposal for value engineering here, that you're going to get Field Turf Revolution. I don't know what you're going to get because I haven't seen a submittal. But if you're asking me that question, that comparison, I'd go with Field Turf Revolution.
Bill?
Yes, sir.
In your comparison, and just looking at this chart, for instance, and your knowledge of both products that we're talking about, is there any one of these where there's a deficiency that is significant, that kind of jumps out at you, concerns you, anything?
Absolutely not. As I said, if the question being asked of me tonight was, would we accept the RAD product on its technical merits as an equivalent to the material that was specified, experience issues aside, and assuming that the infill strategy is appropriate, which I assume it will be because they know what they're doing, I would say unequivocally yes. I would have a tough time keeping them out if I wanted to.
So one thing you spoke to, and I understand you've got to, not hedge your bets, but you need to speak to what is fact and what is, hopefully either conjecture or what may happen. So one of the issues was about who is going to be installing this, and you said there's some discussion about this, but it may not be clear. How do we make a decision if that's a critical variable? How do we make a decision without knowing that?
I'm going to have to refer that to the contractor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
can you?
We have brought on board the top field turf guy from the area to handle all construction for us. So he's experienced in every facet of turf construction, including ordering, making sure everything is done correctly. It's a very complicated process getting the panels there, delivery, and then building fields. He's built a lot of them. This guy ran the Gillette Stadium, both of those projects, Harvard University. So he's the top guy.
We meet you down in
here.
Marshfield in May?
Was I, personally? Yes, I was.
Yeah. You look familiar.
Thank you. Yeah, and
This installer was a colleague of yours?
yeah, no, yes. Northeast Turf was the company down there, and they let several of us go in June. And Rob swooped in and said, "Hey, I'm looking to do this, and now's the right time to do it." So. And I have to tell you honestly, there are very few companies. I've told a lot of people this. There are 2 companies in New England that I'd have done this with, to get a new product started, and Rob's is one of them. He's without question the best site contractor for sports field stuff in New England. My opinion. And I've done so many projects with him, and I just, I watch these guys, and they're highly organized, highly mechanized. You've got the best equipment, the best guys. They do the best job for what we needed back then. And I felt like, Northeast Turf did a really good job with the turf. And, it's unfortunate what happened, but, I found a new home, and I'm, very, very happy with it. So, and Rob has really said, hey, whatever we need to do, let's get this going. So we brought in this other fellow, to Bill knows him. Should I mention him by name?
That's up to you.
Yeah, his name's, well, Richard Letourneau, and he's been at it for, 10, 12 years, about as long as I have, and he's considered by everyone in the area to be the man as far as putting fields in. So we're happy to have him on board.
If you remember the bids, I think that Richard Letourneau was named by Brait as the certified turf installer that they would likely use for Northeast Systems to install their turf. I think I remember that in the bid, if you recall that. Is that
Erroneously, though. He's not a certified field builder.
Okay.
They made an error in their bid.
That's right. That's right. I remember. Okay.
John answered the question the way I was hoping he would answer it, and that's the first time I've heard that name officially. Simply the best installer, crew, leader in the business, and that does resolve any questions I had. If you tell me he's going to be on the job on a day-to-day basis during turf installation, my questions are satisfied.
So you mentioned about this idea of intellectual property and so forth.
Yep.
And I can't help but asking a different question, which I think maybe is resolved. Wouldn't be a non-compete issue in terms of where these guys came from and working with you, okay?
Well, you just could refresh me since we've gone over so many things.
That's okay.
If this gentleman who you just mentioned,
Yes.
Turna,
Yes,
is not a certified turf builder.
he is,
But Rob is.
Okay, all right.
as is his brother.
You left it out there hanging, so we just need
Sorry,
to make sure.
sorry.
Builder.
Yeah. Certified, as we talked about during the protest to the bid, as we talked about during
So thank you for the clarification.
the protest to the bid, being a certified field builder really has less to do with synthetic turf than it does the science and engineering of athletic field construction. Whether it's grass, engineered root zones, under drainage, irrigation, planning, planarity, standards in general, of which synthetic turf installation is a real subset of all of the more technical aspects of field complex construction.
So when we were, for instance, we were down at Marshfield, and the issue was they were having to roll the field and all those kind of things. That had really nothing to do with the turf, right? That had everything to do with what was done underneath the turf.
It had something to do with the turf in that the turf company accepted a base that I found to be pretty deficient.
Right.
Other than that, no, it was a base construction issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any other questions? Comments?
And so,
Sure.
what I hear being presented to us is that, from the perspective of our engineer who wrote the specs, he believes that this is a comparable product. to what was specified in the bid. And that the other question, subject to this idea that no lead certification, that we indemnified for the patent or intellectual property issues, and that the third-party warranty happens, that he would accept that as this, you would accept this as a comparable.
If we set the experience specification
Right.
aside, yes.
Right. But now, and given the experience, you're saying because they haven't done 30 fields or whatever it was,
It's
right?
really the product.
Right, okay.
Right.
Okay. So the third-party warranty, is that something that could be time-consuming to get, or is that something that's about to happen, or is that?
Yeah, probably, I should have it tomorrow.
Okay.
But are you still comfortable with this, even without having the infill, the three, the weights, the sand, and the rubber were blank?
Are you asking me? Sir?
Yes. I think you have to go back up.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Because you said that, you
Yeah.
said the experience, you'll give them credit on that.
Regardless of which turf product you accept, there's still going to be a shop drawing and submittal process that hasn't begun yet. And frankly, we're getting
Close.
We're getting late. And the approval of the submittals, the seaming plan and the marking plan really is the trigger for the contractor to submit an order to the mill to have your field fabricated. Every one of them is custom fabricated. As part of that submittal process, they are required to submit samples of the rubber, samples of the sand, and an infill mix design. If we don't like it, we're not going to accept it. I think that's fair.
Okay. With, you just mentioned schedule, so we're getting late, if you will. Now's the time to, and that's, the time is of the essence, and that's why we're having this meeting tonight, to make this decision. Is October 12th still a makeable date? Okay.
With another monsoon coming tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? No way.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering if our project manager has any has any feelings about this that we need to hear in regard to this?
I don't know that Tom's been involved in the turf aspects of the Cumberland project per se, and isn't necessarily familiar with Rad's
Okay.
venture into this. So, I mean,
And Tom Perry with Park Corporation, project managers. I was not our company, Park Corporation. We're the civil engineers for the Cumberland project, teamed with Birchwood Design Group. So Art offered me the email I think Ray shared with you. But the technical aspect of it, I'll definitely defer to Gail on reviewing the technical aspect of it. As far as everything else, I mean, I was pleased to hear the conversation stayed on technical talk and not, well, is it 40,000, the money part of it, because in the end, I think Gail's going to do their due diligence to make sure you're getting the product that's appropriate for Hingham. So, I'll be in tune with Gail's review, and when those things come in, reviewing that. So.
Okay.
right, and just to keep in mind, so again, Birchwood Design, our landscape architect on the middle school, also landscape architect on the Marshfield project, who had a problem with the turf that was installed, and we had discussions with Art Eddy about that specifically, and also Park Corporation, civil engineer on the middle school project, and now project manager here. So these are folks that we know, folks that we feel good about, folks that we respect. And we reached out to Birchwood and solicited their opinion based on their involvement with the Cumberland project, as well as Bill's opinion tonight. So, thanks, Tom. Any other thoughts? Does anyone feel uncomfortable with considering this course where we would essentially, RAD would be the provider and installer of our artificial turf? at a discount of approximately $40,000.
I mean, based on what I heard from Bill, he said that if this was being presented to him as an alternative to Field Turf Revolution, he would rule it as comparable, if I understood you correctly.
Equivalent?
You would see it as comparable.
Equivalent, right?
Equivalent.
That's the word.
I would approve it as an equivalent.
As equivalent.
If compliance with the experience specifications wasn't an issue.
Right.
Right, and just to talk about the specifications, so this was bid under 3039M, which is not as stringent, obviously, as Chapter 149, which is the chapter that the concession building was bid under. So, as you recall from our discussions during the bid protest back in May, we have significant discretion with regard to the waiver of various specifications as we see appropriate. I have consulted our project counsel on this, and he indicated as much. It's not a situation where someone could challenge us and say, well, they don't have the requisite experience in your specifications. You can't allow them to do that. No, that's simply not the case.
So that being the case, unless others feel concerned about that, it sounds like we have a product, we have product equivalence, we have experience not of this specific product, because this is what I would call a private label product to RAD, but from this manufacturer, has been around for a while. And in terms of the installation piece, we have people that it appears are well-known, that, and we have confidence that it's going to get installed properly. So I'd be interested to know if anybody else has concerns beyond that.
No, I don't. And I would add that you have a company who's, many people are referred to as a proven leader in this field, and has a principal who lives in Hingham, and obviously is going to do a good job because he's right here.
Because we know where he lives.
We know where he lives.
As they say.
So, I mean, honestly, I don't want to minimize that. I actually think that's a very important factor to consider, because everybody in the town, especially on this project, is looking at you, Rob.
And I think there's something to be said for, giving the work to a local business, to a resident. I think that's something we've talked about. Ed, did you have a comment or a question?
No, I'm comfortable, as long as we're comparing apples to apples.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though the head of the column says Field Turf Revolution, that does not necessarily mean that that's what we would get. What it means is we would get a product that would meet these list of specifications.
Right.
And if in fact there are some empties, but if in fact the competition from Ed Sport meets or exceeds, to me, it's a no-brainer.
I would agree.
I have no problem with the turf. I'm just curious, which is fine. I think we're supposed to, it seems like it's a good product. What happens with Article 9? Because we were given money to this. So does this just go back to the town? Is it less spent, or how are we handling that?
I don't know the answer to that. Okay. We will look into that.
Okay.
But since the, and again, I don't know, I'm not sure I know the answer either, but since the overall price was higher, clearly, than what we expected it to be, and since the turf portion of that was not split out separately in the bid, I don't know how you determine, what part of that, was it $454,000?
Wow.
I think that was the number, was that, or was it something higher than that, or something lower than that? So,
no, but it's
something we have to look at.
But it is, but it was,
Right now.
but it was.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly.
It was voted on separately.
Right.
No, I understand, but
No.
it's not separate. We don't know what the price was in his bid.
Well, but we do have a schedule of values for the item that we got after you were engaged, and the schedule of values indicated that the number was 454.
Oh, okay.
So we do have a value provided by the contractor for that item. So Annie makes a good point. It's something we'll have to look into, and it very well may be that we can save the taxpayers $40,000.
Town's going to save the money in any case. Right.
Either way, I mean, what we did earlier tonight is we looked at, a change order, and by the way, normally change orders increase the price. This is a change order that provided a credit, overall credit, right? There were some pluses, some minuses.
And this is value engineering.
This is value engineering.
But it's also some risk. It's a newer product. And that's, you're getting the discount. I'm not saying they're not going to do a great job, but it's not like
Right.
this field, where's my cheat sheet? It's not the field turf revolution.
Right.
You're cutting out the middleman, which is maybe why you're saving some money.
No, actually, I disagree with you on that, based on what Bill said and what John said. They actually have a pattern for a 3-step process where no one else has. So they actually have industry advantage.
Right,
So
well, we're talking, you're assuming field turf revolution. There are a number of products which are equivalent, to use that language, right, to that he very well could have specified, and I'm sure a great number of those would have also, you would have also been comfortable with, but they would not have had that patented silica, rubber, and sand, or cryo rubber and silica sand infill.
Layered system.
Right, layered system. Only field turf. The other 40 don't have it. He might have specified, somebody else that in fact didn't have that.
Well, the big thing is, even though it says field turf here, that doesn't necessarily mean we're getting field turf
Right.
regardless.
Correct.
That's right.
And right to your point about the change orders that we had earlier tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you goes out to Rob Delmonico and his team. It's obviously not just Rob, his team. To continue sharpening the pencil.
Yes.
It's not only
Yeah.
noted, but it's
Well,
sincerely appreciated.
And I think that's really important to note, because I think, what was it, maybe 2 months ago, we had a conversation, and I said, Rob, how can you help us find some more savings on this project? And he said, well, how about this? And then let me look into something else. I have an idea. And he came back to me with something else. And then he called me up and said, I think I have another idea for you. Let's talk about this. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So it's a great thing, because I think not only is he's helping his company, but he's helping himself as a taxpayer.
So he should know not to put your sharpener away yet.
That's right.
We're not quite there, so.
That's the point.
Well, to make sure our concession contractor knows the same, feels the same. Do I hear a motion?
I would move that we accept competition turf as an equivalent product for the Hingham High School Fields project. Is
Bill?
that the
I
appropriate
think it's
language or
important
not?
to establish this as a value engineering initiative,
Mhm.
and that it would be awarded not as an equivalent,
Okay,
but as a VE in the context of a
Okay.
change order.
Provided that we get certification
Right.
on all those
Yes.
other things.
Yep.
Right, so I think the motion needs to reflect
okay.
that we would accept RAD competition turf as a value engineering,
Change
or value engineer, proposal that will take the form of a change order.
And we'll save, that is $40,000 less than the contract.
Right, subject to the provision of no lead certification, no patent infringement indemnification, review and receipt receipt and review of installation crew certifications, and the third-party warranty reasonably acceptable to our engineer team.
So moved.
And in infill submittals.
Right. We can work out the language
Right.
of the motion after, but that's the
gist.
motion.
Second?
Any further discussion, comment, question? Yes, sir.
I do have a question. My name is...
Can you come up here?
Ron Hutchins.
Can you come up here, please?
Ron Hutchins, I live in the town. After all this is said and done, installed, everybody's been playing 2, 3, 4 years, who's going to maintain this product? Because I've been at a couple of fields also, and I've noticed them watering the field down, and then they roll it with a roller, if I'm not mistaken, to make sure those little pellets are ground into the ground. Who's going to maintain that after 4 or 5 years?
Right. I think it's called a groomer that you're talking about, and typically the groomer comes with the product.
For X amount of years?
And this is a school field that's for community use.
Right.
but the school grounds are maintained by school personnel. So we have a building and grounds supervisor, Paul Field, who
Right, I know.
oversees management of a number of folks who take care of our school grounds, and our folks will be maintaining this field as long as it's in place.
Okay. I wasn't sure who was going to be
Sure.
responsible for
No,
the...
just like any other fields, whether they be grass or artificial or parking lots
Right.
or interior of buildings, exterior of buildings, sidewalks, everything.
Because the word that's always used is preventative maintenance.
Sure.
So that's
Absolutely.
what you need.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion, comment, question? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does that conclude the meeting, or do we have anything else?
No, we have a little bit more. Try to be quick, though.
Thank you.
Ray, can I ask Bill a question before you scoot?
Yes.
On a separate topic?
Yes.
Bill?
Bill?
Yes. An update on the MIA POWC?
Oh, yeah, you want to, I can give you that. I can give you that. He may not know. Okay. So Lindsay is on that. We talked about that this morning, and we switched construction meeting to today. It was at 7:30 this morning because there was a conflict with the contractor tomorrow. So we had a construction meeting this morning. Lindsay said that she spoke to Joe D'Entremont, who, from the Rolling Thunder, who has been consulting and assisting us with that. I think there was an issue with the seat manufacturer that Dant Clayton, who is the bleacher manufacturer, was trying to get the seat from, that they would not put the logo on just one seat. Yet it occurred to me that you never see a stadium full of these seats, right? It's usually the one seat, like we have downstairs. So I believe Joe is going to, or I'm sorry, Dan Clayton, the way we left it was Dan was going to follow up with
Yeah, Lindsay was gonna find another
vendor.
talk to another vendor. and
Another vendor, and if we weren't successful with finding another vendor easy enough that could take care of the one, then we were going to speak to Keith German, our Veteran Services Officer, because they got a chair, one chair with one logo.
Didn't
So
Detremont have a manufacturer for one chair?
it might have been a different manufacturer than Dan Clayton was originally looking to use.
Standalone, it won't tie.
No, I understand. I understand that. I think, I don't know the answer. I know that the one manufacturer that Dan Clayton was trying to go with would not do the logo on the one, so he was going to try an alternative. So that's in the works, and Lindsay is, I believe, following up with him on that
And I talked to Keith.
this week. And you did talk to Keith?
I talked to Keith. Keith is looking at his
Good.
contacts
Okay.
that did his seat, so.
Because I
get some other
did
names.
say we would like to button this up right away, because we've been talking about it for some time, and it's been a process, but I think it's an important thing that we try to get finalized. So for those of you in the audience who don't know, we a couple of months ago, we did decide to dedicate a seat in the on the home side of the multipurpose field bleachers as a recognition of POW MIA soldiers. And we were working with our bleacher manufacturer in order to facilitate that. Yeah.
Just one other thing for Bill real quickly, or just to mention, no action item on this. What's interesting to me is now when I walk by the fields and with the wall, remember one of the things that we learned about, people always complain about parking. It looks to me, just from a naked eye, I've measured, but that wall, now because it's so clear, baby, it almost looks like you could get some additional parking in between where that wall is and where that parking lot comes out. And I'm not saying.
Which wall?
Where the fence is, the fence, and where the parking lot is back by the actual concession stand.
You're talking about the one over by
By
the
the
high school.
cafeteria?
Yeah, so if you go down back behind the cafeteria, right.
So in that grass area.
Right, yeah, right up here. It looks like and I'm just saying, obviously, we're not doing anything right now, but if you walk by there, it
It's
looks
broken.
like there could be some additional parking. Just letting you know, since that was one of the hot topics before.
I had thought of the same thing, Andy, when they first put the fence up. I think one consideration that we'd have to look at would be if cars were parking face in, there could be a headlight issue. But there's certainly a lot of space there.
Well, I also think about, like, during the day, as we continue to experience more enrollment, in theory, if our staff, you could almost have a double-up parking lot there during the day, you know.
I mean, tandem kind of thing?
Yeah, because, like, hypothetically, Paul and the vice principal, they both arrive at the same time, they both leave, they could block one of each other in, you know. Again, it was just something I observed, like, when you go look at these things, you think of things after the fact, there might be some more parking there. Because that fence is on our side. I mean, that's not approaching the,
It
that's
is.
not on the property line.
That's correct.
Right, so
It's
there's
well within our property line.
Correct, so that's what I mean, like, when, it's not like you'd be building parking right up to the property line.
Right, no, it's a fair point. What we have, and that area is scheduled to be loamed and seeded and just remain a grass area, although we have asked Gail to, and I reminded Lindsay of this morning because I hadn't seen this yet, to ask you, Bill, to get us, see if we can get some pricing on, and she was going to speak to Eric, on plantings in that area, additional plantings, in response to discussions with a couple of the neighbors in that area. So Lindsay was going to speak to Eric Roisey about that and get us a sense, because we said, okay, let's see where we are when we're going to do the plantings, and let's see where we are with budget, and if it wasn't prohibitively expensive, maybe it's something that we could look into. I don't know. There were no promises, there was just a discussion. So if that were the case, then that area would not obviously be available, and otherwise it's just scheduled to be loam and seed.
Picnic tables over there.
No, those are on the
Well-
school side.
No, I'm saying, how about putting
Oh,
for
you
kids?
could put some.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't need to, I mean, all I was just bringing up a point, there was
Yeah.
more land than you realize when you have a nice
Yes.
clean wall.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I walked that site tonight just before the meeting. The sidewalk is up. That fence, that one-way dog fence is long gone.
That's been gone for 3 weeks, I think, yeah.
They have paved that area that was, my word, deficient on the track. That's paved. It's now poled.
Yeah.
And it looks real nice. And there's piles of loam to be spread, yeah.
Okay.
Just one other thing, in
Yeah.
terms of increasing the parking, one of the items that, items, plural, that's over in that neck of the woods are some big dumpsters. And when, depending upon where the dumpsters are put, invariably, there's parking that's precluded to get, in order to access the dumpsters.
Right.
So that's if you are going to have somebody, had a sense that you might
Out on the
take a peek
grass.
at it.
Well-
If you do keep that in mind. Those dumpsters have always been up at an angle.
Right.
And it precluded some parking.
I think that's something we need to speak to Paul Field about,
Yeah.
and
Right,
just,
because
they've always
of
been
the
in a bad
access
place.
to the trucks to get in
But There's a
and
lot of room
empty.
there, you're right.
Right.
And as we look forward to the more stringent recycling regulations and different kinds of composting and so on, we have to allow that there could be additional dumpsters in that area as well. So there'd be a lot of things to check out.
Okay. Did you want to present the Gale service, construction service for the concession? Do we need to approve that?
Yeah, that, you could approve it, yes. I discussed it during the budget. They're,
Yeah.
the Gale Construction Period Services, this has to do with the concession building. Similar to, the contract that we had with Gale had the field, and then they also had the concession design. And that concession, previously, the committee had approved up to $40,000 for the bidding of the concession. And what we did was we took the first 5 services, which basically got us through the bid period services, but included in that contract was a Phase 6, which was construction period services and project closeout services in the amount of $8,480. And really what that does, that provides services from Gale as the architect and the engineer of record to review all submittals and chop drawings and answer questions to the contractor. It also includes project architect at the pre-construction conference, and also field inspections by the structural engineer, architect, mechanical engineer, and also Gail participating in the meetings and tracking the progress, and managing the submittal process and reviewing the bills. So they're services that we do need, that Gail has been performing, and I would recommend that we approve Phase 6 for Gail in the amount of $8,480. Now, we had allocated $40,000 in the original design contract. That does of $275,000, that special article, but we've used all that money, so this money needs to come out of this project. So what I did on the budget, actually, is I show on the budget, under the design engineer services, Gail's concession component for $8,480, and I've reduced the contingency by an offsetting amount.
Right.
So the project amount stays, in sync.
8480?
$8,480, yeah, $8,480.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we modify our budget to award Gail the $8,480 that they've earned, or how do you want me to word it?
Although we'll earn it.
It's really,
It's in conjunction with construction services associated with the concession.
Phase 6,
right,
you said.
authorizing Phase 6 of the concession construction services.
Great.
Have a second?
A second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. The one last thing, major thing I had on my agenda, Bill, was the bleacher lift and telephone issue. So, I think it would be best if you explain it, because I can explain it, but you'll be able to explain it better than I. I know, but you're real good at it.
I don't know about that, but I'll try. Good evening again. Little context. We have probably specified and supervised the installation of 36 hydro lifts associated with press boxes throughout New England. There's only one New England state at this point that requires a hydro lift to a press box, and that's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that regulation has changed over time. Of all of those, it's my opinion, and I had to go back and look today, none of them have had automatic doors and telephones. And none of them, in my opinion, based on lots of interface with owners, none of them are ever used. We did not recommend that you install an automatic door. We did not recommend that you install a phone. I will acknowledge further discussion that the regulation, I am understanding, is subject to change in the near future and will require telephones for this. Let's remember, this thing travels 12.5 feet. That's all it travels. We're not talking an elevator. We're talking a wheelchair lift. If the regulation were to change and you were to opt not to install the telephone, you would be grandfathered like any other ADA regulation that's implemented after the development of your project. So you have a choice to make whether or not to include, as a change to the contract, a telephone, and whether to include a door activator. The cost of the telephone is about $800. The cost of the automatic door openers is about $3,200. They're pretty straightforward recommendations. I will tell you that right now the breacher fabrication drawings assume that you do have an automatic door opener, but if you opt not to have one, there is a no-cost field change to the platform that would account for not having it. So it's really a question of do you want it and do you want to pay for it, or do you not?
Well, if it's in the drawings, was the figure that was quoted, would we be saving money on this? From an existing quote? If the doors were built into the plan and can be taken out at no cost, Was
The doors, when they did the fabrication drawings for the bleachers, they assumed that there would be a door activator. The plans and specifications do not call for it.
Right, but that's not my question. My question is, if plans included it, was the price for that project including doors?
No.
The
Plans
plan,
did
the
not
plans that
include
we've
it.
had approved for the project did not include
not.
them. However, when Gail went to Dan Clayton and asked for construction drawings for the
Shop
bleacher,
drawings, yep.
for shop drawings for the manufacturer of the bleachers, they assumed the installation of automatic doors, and therefore, that's why.
And that's what raised the issue.
Okay, I got it.
And just an opinion, do you know, I mean, are they manufacturing now with automatic doors as kind of a matter of course, and that's why they assumed
No.
that they would be in there? Then why did they make that assumption?
I don't
Just
know.
an opinion.
I
but-
can't speak to it.
Okay.
I really don't know. Again, we're doing one in Attleboro this summer. We're doing one, we've designed one that's going to go for 2014 in Portsmouth Abbey School and Portsmouth High School. None of them, I don't think we've ever done one with automatic door openers.
So is there any repercussion if we don't put the door opener in terms of
No.
scheduling?
No.
Permitting?
No, it's a
anything
field
like that?
change. It's a very simple one.
But you said that the regulation is likely to change.
For telephones.
For telephones, not for automatic doors.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So are you saying that we don't have to do the phone, but we probably should do the door?
You don't have to, you can do both. You can do either. You can do neither.
I think
None are required as of this time.
It is not.
None are required. I think there's an indication that the regulation with respect to installation of a telephone is likely to change in the near or late future.
Would we be grandfathered, though? to
Yes,
not-
my opinion is like any ADA regulation change, you would be grandfathered.
So just so I understand, the idea of the telephone is if somebody is caught in there, it goes up part of the way and whatever, they can use a telephone.
And they happen to be there at a time when the stadium, for lack of a better word, is otherwise unoccupied.
So no one
If
sees
there's-
them. yeah.
Right, so if there's people
Because
there.
the lift is not fully enclosed. They can
Okay.
yell.
Okay, right. But this is a real a telephone they could call the police or call whomever.
And this bears on a discussion that you're about to have with Tom, which is the routing of telecommunications conduit. Right now, there is no telecommunications to the press box, but if you vote to include a telephone, you also incur the cost of bringing telephone service. It is a conventional telephone. It dials one number, I believe. It's an emergency access number, but it is a telephone
And if it's not enclosed, how is it protected from the elements?
in a box.
Very old-fashioned.
But this is not like a regular elevator. This is only personnel, only approved personnel should be in this.
That's correct.
So the discussion, we've had some, and maybe Tom can speak to this, we've had some discussion, based on my kind of thinking and discussions with Bill and with Lindsay and with Tom, I don't think that automatic doors for this lift make sense, especially for $3,200, for something that is likely not to be used that often, if at all. With respect to the telephone installation, that was a different thing in my mind because it was a smaller number. However, still don't know how valuable that would be. We've talked about it recently in some meetings just in the context of, well, we're digging trenches. We're now installing utilities. We've had discussions, well, the HCAM folks, cable TV folks, approached us about the possibility of, installing infrastructure so that we could televise, broadcast, and record events at this location. Right, graduation, games, other community and school events. So just in the context of talking about the installation of media, if you will, or infrastructure, talked about, well, what extra would it actually cost to throw some telephone conduit in there? And, the distance of where it would have to run, could we actually save some by running it to the school and hooking it into, an available closet near the athletic director's office? We've discussed this with Paul Field as well, and he's chimed in. So, Tom, do you want to speak to that a little bit? Sorry, I don't mean to. put you on the spot, but. Yeah, do you want this?
That's
Okay. This is the wrong one, so I'm not going to hand this out. Yeah. It is.
Better red. Better red.
It's, well, this is
Yeah.
different. He sent me the wrong one at first, and now this is the.
Looks great. Are we passing that out?
Yeah, why not? No?
I just don't know if we have some consistency of what we're
Well,
doing.
it's. Go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Again, Tom Perry, Park Corporation, project managers. I was approached by, I think, Ray headed it off and then ended up developing with Eric Dresser of Hingham Community Access Cable to look at the opportunities for them to get their productions on the field with cameras and any events they record and get them onto the local access network. They could record and then transport the tapes into the school and get them on the air. But as far as live broadcast or immediately, close to live broadcasts, right now the project is constructed with the conduit or the infrastructure to have camera connections on the field. Those camera connections to centralize at the concession building, and then a point of connection to the telecommunications for the town, be it Verizon or be it a private overhead line. But those lines are not part of the project, just the infrastructure under sidewalks, under the field, and whatnot. So when Eric approached me, I just kind of walked him through what was going in this project, just to confirm, things are being built now. If something needs to go in, now is the time to do it. So I walked him through and pretty much generated what you have in front of you, just showing what his avenues are to get back in the school. So you look at in the project right now.
I'm sorry, Tom, so this is for the HCAM or this is for the telephone?
This is for communications, but it could be both. Could be any be it. I think John knows the terminology the best, actually. But if it was fiber lines, the fiber would run back in the school into your main distribution framework and do whatever you want: internet access, cable access.
So, whether we're putting Cat 5 out there or coax cable, some route back to the school so we can tie into overall communications, be it TV, or it could be fiber too. But likely would be, I think, coax, I would think. But, so we'd want to have different chases or paths going over towards the school.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the avenue that the project ends up with to get back into the school is a point of connection at the easement. The end of this blue line is that's an empty 4-inch conduit that takes your communications wires and gets them. And that point of connection, right now, they would have to go overhead and go out to Union Street and then back into the school via Union Street. Now, whether that ended up going via Verizon's or some other communications company's lines or private lines owned by Hingham Access Cable, I'm not sure of that, but that's the means to get back into school. So what Eric and I looked at with Eric is, you're going almost a half mile to get into the front of the school, before the bleachers are installed, i.e. now. There may be an opportunity to get you closer to the school, less cabling. So that's really their avenue. I think they've pushed to try to get a hard number so they can approach their finances with a hard number to get the money approved. Again, we're just looking at right now empty conduits to be with the wires pulled later. And so to the telephone discussion, the $800 is the cost of the telephone. Right now, the means of having that communication are not in the project right now, as it is. That's my understanding.
So if we choose not to put a telephone in there, does that mean, will we still need to do this work now that we want to put the closed circuit?
Well, we're doing utility work anyway. When HCAM approached us, they essentially said, wow, this would be an interesting thing if we could do this, what would be involved? And we said, well, tell us what you would need in terms of equipment, infrastructure, whatever, and then we can try to get you a price. And then, so if you recall, Sandy Peavy and the Cable Advisory Committee appeared before the selectmen maybe a week and a half ago or so, and talked about this in kind of general terms without a hard number, with promise to come back. Says, that they get funding every year through license agreements through Comcast and Verizon, and they have funds available to fund educational programming as well as capital resources that we're happy to receive from them every year. So this is would be an opportunity for them to fund the installation of this aspect of the utilities, if you will, if that were to go in. The telephone's a different story, obviously. We talked about the telephone kind of in the context of, well, we're digging trenches. We're putting this in, does it make sense to put that communication in there while we're doing all the other utility work?
Or at least you'd put a couple spares in. If you needed a 2-inch conduit to pull a piece of coax in, we'd probably put 2 additional 2-inch conduits in so we have enough path. Especially if you look at that red line, what the proposal, I think, is trenching from the concession building across the driveway towards and into a vault that sits, ground level over by the weight room or so. So all the communications could be there, and then at any point we could tap into those, and then we could get into the building, into a main distribution frame, and connect to either coax or to telecom or to whatever services we may need out there. The alternative today, of course, is wireless. But being an old telephone guy, I always like the hard connection. If you have a possibility of putting one in, I like to have the capability, even if it's a spare for the future.
So can we encourage maybe some competition between Verizon and Comcast to be the official telecommunications provider to the Hingham High School fields?
Perhaps. Would you like to undertake that?
I'm not even sure we'd go with the telephone, Dennis. If we didn't need the telephone, we may not pull anything in there, but clearly the coax, they need some type of communication.
Right. I think
connection between the 2 points.
I think, just in terms of the issue of the telephone in the lift, I don't think we really need to do that, in my opinion. I don't know that we...
What is your recommendation, John?
After hearing what Bill said, without a requirement, my inclination would be not to do the telephone in, because you put a communication in there and it's going to break, and then because it's broken, now you get inspected, now it has to be fixed.
But as long as we're running media infrastructure in the trenches, might not be a bad idea to run some additional
I still would run
conduit.
Additional conduit, yes.
Additional
so I have
communications
another path of
conduit
getting over to the
for
store.
the ability to add communications in the future, as long as we're doing it. I think when we look at the numbers for that, it's probably a very small number.
Yeah.
While we're doing.
If HCAM trenches, pays for the cost of the trench and putting in their conduit to put a couple of spares in, it should not be a big number. And then if you end up with a crush or something goes wrong with one of them, you have a spare and you can pull in, and you're really not out of service.
Right. The other thing that's interesting too, and this is not necessarily going to happen, but something that has been discussed. So in the context of consulting with Hingham Municipal Light about the utilities and connecting to the easement, Hingham Municipal Light came to us and said, hey, what about putting that easement underground? What about running those power lines underground? That's something we've been thinking about doing at some point in the future. Maybe this is an opportunity to do that.
Great.
So there are discussions ongoing with the engineers at Hingham and the general manager at Hingham Municipal Light about the possibility of doing that. It would be, the logistics of, whose proposal it would be. My feeling would be theirs, because they approached us about it, and whose cost it would be, that's something to discuss also, but would seem to make sense, particularly if you look at, running lines going around the site, over 2,000 feet, lineal feet, versus going underground, kind of,
Right.
Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So just an interesting thing. Who knows if that will happen? It's not in this project right now, putting the easement underground. RAD is proceeding as permitted, which is to hook up to the easement. But if there's an opportunity to do something and to alter that, we're looking at that. And I think that drawings have been provided to Panos at Hingham Municipal Light, so that he could put together a design.
And I talked to Paul Haney today on that, and Paul does have that design, so he said if we could get with Tom, so at least we can get a price on this and figure out what we're working with. Paul did talk that he thought that pulling in the electrical and stuff would cost about $60,000, and he was looking for some help on trenching and, laying some portion of that. But
So-
we need to get it priced out to
To get it priced out,
we have
figure out
money.
whose money it's going to be, out of which budget, obviously, to the extent that our contractors are there on site digging trenches, it makes sense that perhaps, additional trench work could be done, and that would be something we'd have to look at in terms of our budget.
Right.
Who pays for what, but that's another discussion. But just so you know that it has been broached, and it's a very interesting idea about putting that easement on the ground. That would be terrific. Yes, Ed?
Tom, what technology wiring service is in plan for the press box?
Right now, I don't think, I would have to defer to Bill. I'm not sure if there's any technology.
There's going to be
Electrical.
electrical.
Right.
There's electrical, and there's there's going to be a conduit going from the scoreboard on Michelson Field under the track or around the track to so you can operate the scoreboard and other controls on Michelson Field and the track, and then I presume there'll be some sort of connection with the concession, maybe? I don't know.
Well, and also sound.
The sound,
The
right.
sound will have a connection there.
Public address, yeah.
All the public address hardware will all be in the press box.
That'll be in the press box, and then, and connect to the concession building where the electrical comes in.
Connect for what purpose? I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
Provide the power?
Yeah.
Electrical service will
Yes.
be provided to the press box.
From,
Right, the systems and the controllers are sitting in the concession.
in the concession building.
Right. Yes.
That's what I
All the
mean when a
systems and
connection, that's
controllers are
what.
sitting in
So the power comes in.
That's the question. I thought he was
Right.
talking about data type.
No.
Technology.
High technology.
Yeah, I am. Was there any?
No, there is no data.
And Ray pointed out control from the press box to Mickelson Field scoreboard, control to the new multipurpose.
They're all wireless.
Yeah, okay.
That's wireless, yeah.
That's wireless.
Yes.
All scoreboards today are wireless.
Yep. Yep.
All you, but
The
power
one-
supply, obviously.
And will the wireless
Well-
from the high school reach out to there?
Good question.
Yeah,
Currently, I can tell
the
you.
scoreboard in the middle school gym is wireless.
Oh, yeah, right.
Currently, the Wi-Fi, I
Yeah,
can
no.
attest that it doesn't.
Does?
There's
Does not.
there's a Xfinity hotspot nearby that provides cable and internet access if you have.
You mean on the
But that
field?
could be one of the reasons, you pull an extra chase in there, and then you get, put some Cat 5 out, and you put a wireless in the concession. Yeah.
And everybody in the stadium's going to be doing this.
Well, you could do web.
They're
I mean,
doing
you
that
could have it,
anyway.
Yeah, right, they're
You could
gonna
have
put
it
their phones
controlled,
out.
I mean, probably.
Won't even be watching the game anymore. Watch the game on your computer, right?
Well, at some
So-
point, we may be there, who knows?
So Ray, to recap, the consensus is no to the elevator, or no to the door, and no to the telephone, or I'd like to make that motion?
I think that's why, I don't think we have to make a
Okay.
motion. I think we just pass on it. I think that seems to be the consensus, that they're not needed, they're not recommended.
Just so you know what you're voting for, the lift is a 11 and a half or 12 and a half foot, expose the elements, chariot that transports an individual with authorization from the ground to the press box level, an individual who's wheelchair bound will be able to access any part of the stands in any seat. But this is only designed to get that individual, male or female, with authorization to the press box.
Right. Which is, you said,
Which
Bill,
is-
12 feet?
Which is still going to happen, just not with automatic doors.
Correct. Manual door.
Right. Okay. I think there's consensus to not
I'm comfortable.
include automatic doors or a telephone at this time. Fair?
Great.
Good? Okay. Thank you for your time on that. I think this discussion about the utility infrastructure, obviously with HCAM, is going to continue. We'll see what happens with HMLP. But they are, digging trenches and installing utilities now. That's ongoing, so there's an opportunity. So it may be something we discuss further.
Yeah, if the contractor needs to put in conduit, needs to be decided soon. I'm not sure. I don't know if you're looking for direction on, does the school committee say proceed and coordinate with Hingham Cable, or, that kind of.
I mean, I get the sense that, am I right in getting the sense that we think that it would be a good thing for the project if we were able to coordinate with HCAM and Cable Advisory to put in that infrastructure and that ability to televise, record, broadcast events at that location?
That's going to be covered by their budget?
At their expense.
That's what we understand.
Yes.
They are very receptive to suggestions of how they can help with robotic cameras,
Yep.
Infrastructure, and so on.
They actually have great plans even for the fall, getting into the schools and
Yeah.
trying to broadcast more of what goes on.
I mean,
It's great.
Didn't I hear also something about the security cameras as well, as potentially part of that? Or not?
Discussion on security cameras came up, and again, the group was looking for some numbers.
So, I think we're good?
Okay.
We're good on
Yeah,
this?
no, I think, there's consensus that that's a good idea to pursue, and we'll continue our discussions with HCAM and Cable Advisory, and, good.
Yeah, try to make that happen and put a couple of spares in if they try.
I agree with John, if you're going to put in 3, I'd vote for 5.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. You have a trench, you're putting in conduit for communications, and you put in,
Extra.
yeah.
You mentioned another thing, the cameras, I mean, that could be another purpose for this
We don't need,
conduit.
we don't
You
need a
get the-
traffic signal for
You
the
could
parking
use a
lot.
wireless, but if you can pull it in and make it hardwired, why wouldn't you,
So, with the deal with the light plant and doing that, if there's a substantial cost involved to us, I think we need to discuss that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely, of course, absolutely. Yeah, and this is going on the assumption that it would come out of their budget, and there would be some discussion further about how it would be paid for.
Right. There likely would be some cost for us. I mean, a little description was from Paul today. I mean, the run would be conduits, and I forget if he said 3 conduits, but it'll also have to be encased in concrete. So,
Yep.
the trenching aspect of this is not insignificant money. But I think first we need to know exactly what the money is, and then, make an evaluation and then figure out if there's some way to pay for it, and if we perceive it as a value.
That's my list.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Great.
That's all I had on my list. I don't know if anyone else had anything, or they had a question, or any questions or comments from the audience on anything that we've discussed or anything we've not discussed. In that case, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ed, have a great trip.
9:22.
See you in 2 weeks.